Good morning and welcome to WHIO Reports, a community service of News Center 7. I'm Jim Oddie. You know, we've been through a lot in the last couple of weeks. The death of Trayvon Martin, the subsequent trial and acquittal of George Zimmerman, captured and held the nation spellbound for weeks and weeks. Now that this has all happened, many states away, though, people are feeling the impact of it all. In this half hour, we'll be talking about that case and much more, what it means to the Miami Valley. And we'll examine the work of the NAACP in the Dayton region. Being our guest of the show now, I want to bring them in here. Derek Forward is the local president. Tom Roberts is the chair of the group's Political Action Committee. Christopher Shaw heads up economic development. Welcome to the program, and I want to start, Derek, first with a little background about the history of the chapter and what's happening with it right now. Bring us up to date.
Thank you, Jim. First, we want to take this opportunity to thank you and WHIO for giving us the opportunity to share with the Miami Valley what it is that the Dayton unit NAACP does on a day in and day out basis. So thank you. Our vision is to fulfill the dream of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 by capitalizing on the second A of the NAACP, which stands for advancement, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Our goals are clear. We have three core goals. One is to better inform the community on what we're doing, to proactively educate the community on issues affecting all Americans. And once you inform and educate people, then that will ultimately empower them to make better daily decisions on their daily journey of life. From a proactive standpoint, back in 2007, we implemented a proactive civil rights agenda. So every single month, we're talking about issues such as gun control in our community, the right to work law that's staggered in the Ohio State House right now, unknown career opportunities in the healthcare industry. So every single month, we are engaging citizens in educating them on the front side of civil rights activities. From a civil rights standpoint, and this is where many people understand the civil rights movement, and that's the marching and the protesting. Last year, we investigated 178 cases last year. That was up 12.6% versus the previous year. June 2013, year to date, we have investigated 88 cases, which is up. Well, basically, it's flat this year. However, 46% of those 88 cases are either employment or police related. We are urging PNC Bank to reconsider its closing of the West Town branch on West 3rd Street, as it's going to affect many seniors up in that area. And we're also asking citizens to monitor very closely the upcoming trial of the Dante Price case, as we may have our own Trayvon Martin case right here inside of the Gem City. From an economic development standpoint, we have a jobs referrals program that Chris will talk about a little bit later. I can tell you in June, the unemployment rate in the city of Dayton came in at 7.3%, while the state of Ohio was 7.3% as well, nationally 7.6%. But the staggering result is that for African Americans nationally, we came in at 13.7%. That is why the NAACP will always be needed as it relates to equalizing the gap from all frontiers, whether or not it's employment related, whether or not it's healthcare, whether or not it's jobs. From a membership standpoint, we are the third largest unit in this great state of Ohio. Our membership was up 5.1% from the previous year, well, actually last year. And currently, June year to date, we're up 31.8%. That's because people understand and feel the burning desire to get engaged in civil and human rights nowadays.
I want to talk about what's been in the news recently. We focused on it here so much at News Center 7 over the last couple of weeks, and it still is ringing true today, and I want to talk about that first here. Yes. I don't want to take the entire half hour, but I want to begin here. We're going to move on to the Trayvon Martin case. After the court ruling, a lot of people here and really all across the country took to the streets to express their opinions, and I want to show you now just a sampling of what we saw both here in Dayton and in Springfield.
A change has to take place. This catastrophe is a wake-up call for all of us. So a change has got to take place.
What type of change?
That stand your ground rule, that stand your ground law needs to be looked at.
So I just want to make sure my generation is down here doing what we need to do. And hopefully whoever sees this, if you see this and you have children or you have nieces or you have nephews, brothers and sisters, it affects all of us.
It's at a point where in Florida, evidently, you can just shoot whoever you want if you're white, but if you're black and you shoot your attacker, you go to prison for 20 years.
In response to all of that, Derek, your analysis, where does this case leave us now here in the Miami Valley?
For many Americans, I just want to state that the jurors are the ones who failed the justice system. And what I mean by that, while our nation, this is our democracy and this is how we operate, that we have a jury of your peers to decide your fate. But however, in the hearts of many Americans, this decision was the wrong decision. That's why we have a U.S. Department of Justice. And that's why the NAACP, within a week's time, gathered more than 1 million signatures, that we have submitted to the U.S. Department of Justice to file civil and human rights charges against George Zimmerman.
Tom Roberts, I want to bring in the conversation now. You know the political system here. How important is it for some kind of action to take, in your view, some action to take?
Well, we certainly don't need to have,
right now. Yeah.
Right, we certainly don't need to pass a stand your ground or a need to retreat law in Ohio, and there's one pending. So our position in Ohio would be to be against any changing in the current law, because the current law really requires a person to try to retreat before using deadly force. It's been on the books for many years. It's worked. I think that was part of what went wrong in Florida, is that there was a confrontation, and the confrontation escalated. Jim, in the first month, the first year, when the stand your law went into a place in Florida, 13 people were shot. Half those people died. The other 4 were seriously wounded. So there's something seriously wrong with the law as it stands. I know 20-some states have it. Ohio does not need it. And just the confusion on what needs to be done once you're confronted is the issue. We in the legislature passed a castle law which prevents someone from breaking in your home, and you can take force if you feel your life is being threatened to defend your home. That's what we did, and that's all we need in Ohio. We don't need an extension.
Christopher Shaw, your viewpoint on all of this, you're the business guy here.
Yeah.
You're the one, you look at the politics part of this and the criminal justice system, and you say what?
Well, no, I agree with both Tom and Derek have said this morning regarding the case. I believe that the laws that are in effect on the books now are adequate, and I think that adding changes to those would cause confusion, and I don't think it's necessary.
What lasting, I'll get everybody's opinion here, what lasting effect will this case have on all kinds of fronts? First, political, in terms of the dynamic of a lot of communities at work here. Do you think it's going to have a lasting effect? We're still talking about it now. Will we be talking about it a year from now, 5 years from now? Derek?
My answer to that is one word: absolutely. And the reason I say that is because anytime this could have been a death that could have been avoided. All Mr. Zimmerman had to do was do as instructed by our law enforcement, not to follow the young man. If that would have happened, there would not be even a trial. There wouldn't have been a trial taking place. $30,000 in Sanford would not have been wasted, on the process down there. So in years to come, and unfortunately, Jim, is one thing that that citizens can't do, and that's legislate the heart of man or woman. You can't legislate the heart. So unfortunately, that's why I say the NAACP will be around for another 104 years. Locally, we've been around here for 98 years. We will celebrate 100 years old here locally on May the 10th, 2015. So as we continue to fight for everyone's civil and human rights, because one thing that I don't see, when I look at you, Jim, more of you founded the NAACP than us three. Many Americans don't know that. In fact, our first president from 1909 to 1976, all of our presidents were white male. Many Americans don't know that, but hopefully they hear that today on the show.
We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the programs and initiatives that are at work here in the Dayton region here with your organization, and where this all fits in together. Stay with us. You're watching WHIO Reports here on News Center 7 and on WHIO Radio. Stay with us. Welcome back to WHI Reports. I'm Jim Oddie. Thanks for being with us this weekend. We're talking about leadership at the NAACP organization. Derek Forward is with us. He's the president. Tom Roberts heads up political action in the Miami Valley, and Christopher Shaw is on economic development. We'll talk about all of the programs and projects that are coming up, and I can't wait now to ask about this award here. What is that all about, Derek? Tell us about. And for those people listening on radio, Derek has a very beautiful award sitting in front of him here on the set. What is that?
This award, we just came from our 104th annual convention of the NAACP, and this is called a Thalheimer Award. And this is the highest award that any unit in the NAACP can receive from the NAACP. So we came in first place for the programs and activities that we do here locally inside of our community. And to win this award at 2,200 branches across the nation is quite an honor.
Let's go back to the news, and I'll show you some video here from what had happened over the last couple of weeks on the Martin case, George Zimmerman. That still continues to boil in the background. Now that this has generated so much interest across the country and here in the Miami Valley, how do you capture some of that enthusiasm and attention that's brought to bear here? Tom Roberts, what do you do about that and channel that that energy?
Well, Jim, our national president and chairman of the board, met with their young people at our recent convention because they were, like most of us, disheartened by the outcome. But part of the conversation is how do we, as parents, how do we have these conversations with our young people? Because the facts would be a 17-year-old was going to his home with a box of candy and some tea, and he was killed. And so we as parents have to have these conversations, much like our forefathers, parents had it with their children who lived in segregated cities of the South. How to conduct yourself, how to protect yourself in this world. Because many of the young people today, as we've seen, are basically saying it's open season for taking the lives of young black males, and no one's going to do anything about it. The fact of the matter was the police department didn't report Trayvon Martin's killing to anybody. He was placed in the hospital or in a morgue as John Doe. His father filed a missing persons report, and that's how it became known to his father that his son was killed. So part of what we have to do is have a conversation with our young people to say the Justice Department is protective, but we have to also be protective of our young people as parents, as a much broader community, and not just the African American community.
When it comes to your unit, your chapter here in Dayton, what other programs do you have going on when it comes to political action? What's on the front burner?
Political action is to make sure Ohio does not push forward any more voter suppression laws. And light of the Voting Rights Act taken away, we have to show where discrimination is taking place, because that is part of the data that the Congress will need in order to push forward a new and a better and improved Voting Rights Act. We will be very actively against capital punishment. We're waiting for the report to come back. As you know, the Supreme Court has a task force looking at capital punishment. We're waiting for that report to come back and see legislatively where we can support that. But as an organization, we're against capital punishment in the United States.
There's an awful lot, Derek, I was going to ask you, there is an awful lot going on. So you have a lot of challenges in front of you as a matter of priorities. So there's a lot happening in the chapter.
Yes, in addition to what Chairman Roberts has stated, we are currently in the process of organizing a march on Washington on August the 28th, August the 24th. Of this month as a 50-year commemorative celebration of the March on Washington. But we had an opportunity last week to hear from Trayvon Martin's parents' attorney. I think his name was Benjamin Crump. Had an opportunity to hear from Al Sharpton. Had an opportunity to hear from Martin Luther King III. Had an opportunity to hear from Martin Luther King III, and there was one other gentleman. But however, listening to them, this is going to be a rally and an outcry, a peaceful outcry, because we were going to honor Trayvon Martin's life. But we need to send a clear message to these United States of America, to all the citizens in these United States of America. Let's work together as one nation under God, and indivisible and justice for all. So when I think about those words, those beacon light of words, hope is still on the horizon for all of us to come together.
But part of that picture, though, has to be on the economy, and that's why I'm going to bring Christopher into the conversation. How do you work within this organization, Chris Shaw, in this organization on bringing jobs to Dayton and try and match that up with a variety of people in every neighborhood? How do you do that?
Absolutely. We believe in engagement. We engage with municipalities, local, county, state organizations to try to bring opportunities to the community. We are working heavily with the Dayton Human Relations Council, with the Minority Business Partnership, the Montgomery County Workforce Investment Board, to try to engage with them and to make sure that when programs are enacted, that they have our community in mind. For instance, soft skills training. That's good for our community, but also the broader community in building the skill set for the Dayton workforce.
And if you had that opportunity, whether you don't have a magic wand and you don't have a blank check, unless Derek has given you some money to work with, what else should be done here in the community, you think, to help bring those jobs in? Because our sense on this program, and I made just about every guest on this program over the last 6 months talk about where they think our economy is here currently. And you should know, as being a business person,
Absolutely.
Where do you think we are right now? Is this the new economy and this is it? Or is there something else coming and we're in mid-recovery? Do you think this is it?
We are lucky to, in a way, to have been on the forefront of the manufacturing, the shift from manufacturing. Here, GM pulled out a while ago. And I think that we have ideas in place to grow the economy. The tech hub that we're trying to create here is valuable, but it takes education. And I think that's what large organizations, companies would be attracted to for Dayton. We have a huge healthcare system here that's cutting edge. And I think we have a lot to offer companies to come to the area to invest and to grow our economy.
And as you reach out, Derek, as you reach out to people, how are they responding?
Well, I know, just like I spoke about earlier about our jobs referrals program. We understood that as African Americans, a lot of times we don't get a lot of these contracts that are going on. Like right in front of your studio here, there's construction going on. So what we said is that we're going to create a database of skilled trade workers and get those skilled trade workers job opportunities with the general contractor, because as African Americans, we normally have an issue with getting the appropriate bonding that's associated with these contracts that come into the city and to the county. So we have been very successful through our jobs referrals program, sending a letter to those general contractors, thanking them or letting them know that we understand they just received a contract and that we're here to help them out with their diversity initiatives.
Tom Roberts, you work with kids all the time and have for some time. I won't say how many decades now. You work on the legislative side and with kids on campus.
Right.
Do you get a sense that they get it, that the American dream is there for your taking, but there are certain things you have to buy in. You have to be engaged. You have to be organized. You have to do the work yourself. If they would just take advantage of the programming that you have available, that would be a huge step forward. Do they get it?
I think this generation does get it because they see the handwriting on the wall and the advantages that they have with an education, a higher education. So that's why they're engaged in their school work and in the community. And service learning is very much a part of what they're learning in school. So, Jim, I think they are very much engaged, and I think we're in good hands. I think, I could leave this earth tomorrow and know that the generation that's coming after me is going to take care of what needs to be done to make us and to make this nation a success.
You're building those leaders of tomorrow.
Leaders
correct?
of tomorrow. And I just want to piggyback on something the president was talking about. We have probably 20-some committees inside of the structure in NAACP, Veterans Affairs, Education, Labor and Industry, and that is what makes the unit work. That's what makes it successful. We have people who are specialized in these areas and they bring to the table those special skills. So that's why we're able to cover so much base, because we bring expertise. Chris Shaw in the business communities who are active, not just in the African American community, but the Chamber of Commerce and others. So that's the quality of people that are part of the NAACP local unit.
We're going to step out for another break. When we return, we're going to talk a little bit about the future with the remainder for this year and into next year, what you have planned for the Miami Valley. A lot of people following your leadership. Stay with us on WHIO Reports. I'm Jim Oddie. This is WHI Reports. Derek Forward and Tom Roberts and Christopher Shaw are with us from the NAACP. We're talking about race, the economy, their mission here. Derek, let's talk about the future. We have discussed in this program how there has been much focus on the work that you're doing, concurrent with what's happening on the Martin Zimmerman case. How do you bottle that enthusiasm and take it forward and say, look, we're going to make improvements in our community?
Well, first and foremost, Jim, we have the largest sit-down dinner of any organization in Montgomery County. And that is by ways of our Freedom Fund banquet. That will take place on October the 25th of this year at the Dayton Convention Center, where we will have the Honorable Rabbi David Saperstein as our keynote speaker. He's over the Religious Action the Religious Actions Center based out of Washington, D.C. And he has been very heavily engaged in civil rights for a very long time. And we look forward to him bringing a message that's going to be swift, concise, and to the point as relates to this particular case. And many other civil rights issues that continue to plague our nation. We're going to have Martin Bayless, who's a former NFL player, standout safety inside the NFL. He will be the recipient of our Community Service Award this year. And so we're going to honor him for the many years that he has been engaged with the youth inside of our community free of charge. And we also understand that him and Keith Byers initiated that particular football camp that happens every year. But then Martin continued to carry the torch, and we're going to honor him this year.
Tom Roberts, I want to close by asking about political action. Are people now as interested in this topic as they were when you first started a couple of years ago in politics? Okay, I'll go back 30 years.
Yes.
When you first started as a new House member in the Ohio House going up to Columbus, do you get that sense that people are any more or less? My theory is that with the internet, I could follow everything. If I'm interested, I could follow 24/7 exactly what's happening. That opportunity for engagement is much greater now than it was in the old days.
I think people are more engaged today, especially for the reasons you talked about, but there are more and more legislative issues that are impacting their lives. And when people are personally impacted, the right to work, as we saw Senate Bill 5 brought a lot of people out of the woodwork. Once they're out there and they see what's going on, they're staying out there. And so we are part of a number of different coalitions, both state and locally, but we will continue to stay on the educational, the economic development, and the legislative issues. So people are out there and they're very active today on all those issues.
Thanks for your time on the program this morning.
Thank you.
We'll check back with you at some point in the future, and you'll see continued news coverage about what's happening with the NAACP. Thanks for being here, and thank you for being home as well as watching. Now, for more coverage of this issue and much more, go to our website, WHIOTV.com. You'll see the day-to-day news, weather coverage, and sports. I'll be checking sports scores over the weekend as well and see what's happening. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for being with us this morning. That's our program. I'll see you next week at WHI Reports.